Hi guys, welcome to Top Wisdom. Today we're going to learn the poem Death by Anonymous. So I'm going to explain the poem, which is death, the topic of it. I'm gonna explain each and everything you need to hear. So let's go. Background to the poem. This poem was originally a Welsh ballad meant to be a song. Traditional ballads are typically of unknown authorship, which is anonymous, having been passed on orally from one generation to the next. Welsh folk songs and poetry often deal with themes of death and doom. Structure. This poem consists of 5 stanzas of 4 lines each quatrains. Each stanza consists of 2 rhyming couplets. It has a set rhyme scheme of A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E, F, F, G, G, H, H, I, J, J. Inversion is often employed to ensure the desired rhyming scheme. First person speaker is used to give us first-hand information and the speaker's thoughts. The phrase thinking surely is repeated 3 times. The focus on the word thinking emphasizes that he is unable to control his thoughts of death or dying. The word death is used as a refrain in the last line of stanza 2 and 5. This emphasizes the theme of the poem. We cannot escape death. Themes: the inevitability of death. Death is inescapable. Once we are born, we enter death's realm. The irrational death of dying. The tone of the poem. Shock. The death successfully follows him everywhere. Fear or anxiety. Fearfully tries his utmost to avoid death by all means. The tone of the speaker changes as the poem progresses. In stanza 1, the tone is slightly depressed. His spirit is weighed down by his irrational fear of dying. In stanza 2 and 4, a tone is disbelief and uncertainty becomes evident. This is followed by growing desperation as he tries to escape death. In the last line of the poem, the tone changes to one of the resignation. He realizes or acknowledges that it is impossible to escape death. Serious. Death is a serious matter. It is your last goodbye to your loved ones. Humorous. He seems to play hide and seek with death. Mood. The mood of the poem. Despair, hopelessness, misery. Title: Death. The subject matter of the poem is indeed an almost humorous story about the inevitability of death. Summary. The poem Death deals with a topic that sometimes makes people feel uncomfortable, e.g. death. In the first stanza, the speaker describes how one night he cannot fall asleep because he lies thinking about death or dying. He is probably troubled, sick, or even old. He is constantly thinking about his oncoming death. He tries all means possible to avoid thinking about death, but he fails. Death seems to outwit him every time. It seems to know that what his next move will be. Eventually, he admits that there is no way to escape death. He will have to accept it. Message of the poem: men should not worry about dying or try to avoid it, but rather concentrate on living life in the full of enjoying every moment. Okay guys, now I'm going to summarize each stanza, starting from stanza 1. So please guys, take notes. Stanza 1. In this stanza, the speaker tells how one night he cannot fall asleep as he continually thinks about dying. In stanza 1, the speaker is home in bed but finds it difficult to fall asleep because he is thinking about his own death. My last journey. The speaker may be old, since some older people tend to think a lot about how their lives will end. It is, however, not a given. There may be a different reason for this fear of death. He may be sick or simply obsessed with his imminent and impending death. He may still have unfinished business, feeling that he is not ready to die. Nevertheless, it seems that the thoughts about death torment the deaf continually. Normally, lying on one's bed at night is associated with rest and tranquility and sleep. Night is also associated with darkness and death. At night, our deepest fears surface. Things always seem scarier or more threatening at night. One implies that he is going to relate the event of one specific night. However, one gets the impression that is a nightly or recurring event. One night may also represent many similar nights spent by the speaker. This can possibly be one of the reasons for the dim eyes. He is very tired because of the lack of sleep. Alliteration: fleeting foot head flee. The soft F sound emphasizes how softly, secretively, and quickly sleep disappears or runs away. It also links the three words fleeting, foot, fleet, and thereby it emphasizes the speed at which this happens. Fleeting means moving at great speed, quickly, fast. It means sudden, brief, and lasting, or lasting for a short time. Not really applicable here. Fleet, past tense of flee, to run away and escape. Personification: sleep is described as a person who runs away from the speaker. Sleep seems to elude him, like a person who is quickly running away on foot. His fear of death has rendered him unable to sleep. He is desperately and in vain trying to sleep. No doubt, e.g., example, surely without a doubt, with complete certainty. The speaker knows the reason for his sleeplessness. My mind was heavy. His mind is preoccupied, deeply troubled by his fear of dying. He is consumed by the fear of dying. He constantly thinks about his death with concern. His expression, his worry, doubt, distress, anxiety. Metaphor: last journey. Death is described as the final journey of man's life. Journey has connotation of enjoyment. Euphemism: death is described as less intense or threatening. It is referred to as a pleasurable, enjoyable trip. Stanza 2. As a result of his inability to sleep, he decides to get up to wash his face in order to drive away the negative thoughts. His attempt fails completely. As he bends down to wash his face in a bowl of water, he imagines seeing a visible image of death sitting on his rim of the bowl. The speaker finally gives up trying to sleep. He decides to get up and calls on someone to bring water to his room so that he can wash his face. He expects a positive outcome. He hopes that washing his face with cold water will not only refresh him but also soothe his troubled mind and rejuvenate or energize him. Antithesis, but he does not feel better. The imagined appearance of death adds to his worries. Death appears even before he can start washing his face. Example, as he bends to wash his face in a bowl of water, he imagines seeing death sitting on the edge of his washing basin. His emphasis is constant thinking about death. Dim, not able to see clearly. Eyes so dim. There are at least three possible reasons for this. He is still very tired because of a lack of sleep. His eyes are tired. They look lifeless. He is worried and scared of dying. It might also indicate his age. He is probably old or close to death. His eyes might also be blinded by tears because of his fear and sadness. Personification. Death is personified as a person who is everywhere the speaker turns. It acts like a stalker that follows him relentlessly. Rim is the outer edge of something secular. He constantly thinks about death. His troubled mind and overactive imagination make him visualize death on the edge of the basin he is about to use to wash his face. This sight will surely defeat the purpose of washing his face, which is an effort to feel better or refreshed. The speaker's fear of dying is so intense that he cannot escape from death, or for that matter thinking about it. Stanza 3. This drives him to church to pray, certain that this will take his mind off thoughts of death. However, he has barely finished praying when he realizes that death is sitting in his seat. His appealing sight of death sitting on the rim of his washing bowl drives him to church to pray. He convinced that this will take his mind off thoughts of death. Most people tend to turn to God if everything else has failed. He sets off the church as he is sure he will find relief there. He wants to pray to relief from his concerns, and he firmly believes that death will not enter the church. He believes that he will be safe and protected in church, as it is believed to be a place of safety. He kneels down to earnestly beg for God's protection, but he has barely finished praying when he realizes that death is sitting in his seat. Pray. To communicate with God, he hopes to get God's help to ward off death or stops himself from thinking about death consistently. Note: he does not go to church to confess or to praise the Lord. He currently solely focused on his own protection and safeguard. Elision. Sure. Example, surely. Meaning that he is very confident that death will not dare follow him into church. He hopes that it will respect the sanctity of the church. Refuge. Often receive protection in churches. Nobody is allowed near them. A church is regarded as a place of safety. It provides protection and it is there where the speaker thinks that God will protect him from death. He is confident that death will not follow him into the church. Ironically, it is, however, not what happens. He cannot escape from death or stop thinking about death. The B alliteration, but before, links the two words and emphasizes how futile this attempt to escape is. Death is there waiting for him. Even before he can rise to take his seat, death has already occupied his place. The speaker is kneeling down to pray. Going down on one's knees when one prays indicates great respect and sincerity. It may refer to an intense pleading. Personification. As the narrator finishes his prayer, he finds death waiting for him in the seat that he has left vacant when he kneels down to pray. The speaker compares death to a person who has rudely and disrespectfully taken over his seat in church. Death seems to follow the speaker everywhere, like a stork would. Set death upon my seat. It literally means that to him it feels as if death is a person following him around and even has audacity to sit on his seat in church. Figuratively, the speaker means that he cannot escape thoughts of death, not even while in church. Stanza 4. Alarmed by the sight of death sitting in his seat in church, he hurries home and locks himself in his bedroom, but this does not help either. Death enters the room through the floorboards. Shocked and disillusioned, he hurries away from the church and locks himself in his bedroom. Ironically, this does not help either. Despite the fact that he surely locks the door, Death still manages to enter his room through the floorboards. He is unable to keep away. Chamber refers to a bedroom, a place where one normally feels safe and able to relax and recover. He hopes to escape death in the privacy of his room. However, it is not a clever move, as it is exactly where he saw death in the first place, in his bedroom, on the bowl's ring. Head refers to the past tense form of the cold-fashioned word here. Hi. To hurry, go quickly, or hasten. It indicates the sense desperation or agency. Here is also used for sake of rem, tone, anxiety, intense fear or desperation. The second repetition of the surely certainty, it serves to emphasize his conviction that he has at last found the perfect hiding place, a way to escape death or thinking about death. He thinks that death will respect the privacy of his bedroom. It will not come into his room uninvited. He even goes as far as locking himself inside the room, making sure death is locked out. But in case that although he has taken all necessary precaution to avoid thinking about death, he is still outwitted by death. Firmly means to securely fix his place, tighten or strengthen something. The speaker wants to ensure that death stays outside. Ironically, despite all his precautions of locking the doors, death still enters from under the floor. The verb locked means to shut a place by means of a lock, as for a security or restraint. He does everything in his power to keep death out. To his dismay, death still finds a way to come inside. The speaker cannot escape death. It seems to be one step ahead of him all the time. It will use the most unlikely entrance through the flow. He still cannot stop thinking about death. One cannot escape death. It is a vital part of life itself. The moment one is born, one enters the realm of death. The speaker therefore cannot escape death, and neither can he keep his mind from wandering off to thoughts about when and how he will die one day. Stanza 5. Finally, in desperation, the speaker alone rows a boat out to the sea to escape death. He fails yet again. Death ends up taking over control of his boat. Finally, in desperation, he rows out to sea only for death to take control of the boat. Then this is yet another attempt to escape death. There is no place on land where death has not found him. He therefore tries to open waters. His last attempt to escape death is to go out onto the sea in a boat. He believes that death cannot stay above water, and it therefore not be able to follow him. He believes that death will not be able to find him if he is far out at sea. Repetition or offshorely. Line 10, 14 and 18. The speaker has found another possible escape route that he believes that it will definitely keep him safe from death. He tries to reassure himself that he is in control. The fourth repetition of but. The use of be alliteration but before indicates that he does not get what he has expected. It emphasizes the impossibility of escaping death or thinking about it. He does not get very far out into the sea before he suddenly comes to the realization that he cannot escape death. The deep is an example of metonymy. Here it means out into the open waters of the sea. Captain, the master of or commander of the boat or ship. There is no hiding from death, and he cannot stop thinking about death. Metaphorically, it is death that will decide when it is time for the speaker to die. The speaker, has no choice in the matter. Personification. Death is compared to a captain or a ship taking charge of the narrator's life. The captain of the ship has full control and his orders are to be followed. Death is personified as a person who follows the speakers everywhere, and the subject of the death is always on the speaker's mind. It is death who will decide when it is time for the speaker to die. The speaker has absolutely no say in the matter. Metaphor. Ship refers to the speaker's life journey as well as his final journey, i.e. death itself. The implication is that death is in complete control of his life. It is impossible to avoid it or hide from it. Death seems to know his moves in advance and keeps outsmarting him. He makes peace with the fact that he cannot run away from death, that it cannot be avoided, neither can he escape thoughts of death. Note: death is personified throughout the poem as death appears to follow the speaker everywhere, and the subject of the death is always on his mind. So guys, this is all you need to know about the death poem by the Anonymous. Please don't forget to subscribe. It's been a long video, and like the video and share the video. Peace.